everybody for taking the time to join us today. I know everybody's got a busy schedule. Appreciate you carving some time out to join us. We've got some great stuff today. I've got a few housekeeping things to go over before we get started. If you have technical difficulties during the webinar, please call or text Hannah. Her number, I believe, is listed in the chat box or will be here shortly. But also, if you want to jot it down now, her number is 970-556-0203. If you have any technical difficulties, shoot her a text or give her a call. Also, feel free to submit questions throughout the webinar in the question box, and then we'll address those questions at the end. So just go ahead and get started here. We think webinars are really a great way to bridge gaps in communicating those complicated changes where online trainings or email or newsletters aren't really a good fit. We're glad you joined us today, and we hope you continue to find these informative and valuable. Today's agenda includes a continued conversation on quality assurance mistakes. We found that section of the webinar last time to be very helpful. We got a lot of good feedback on that part, and we think we'll continue that as a regular addition to the webinars. We'll go over a few important updates and reminders, including a new view of our Partner Center. And the bulk of our webinar will be from our guest speaker, Peter Troast. We're very excited to have him here, and it'll be on Google Business. So I'm going to jump right into trends from QA as our first agenda. I'm going to start out with negative pressure duct testing. We found some issues with that, so we want to clarify a few things there. Also want to clarify how not to model stem walls and rim rate. And then last but not least, we'll cover a common misconception of kitchen exhaust fans and how they're required on all ENERGY STAR homes. The setup for duct tests under negative pressure is a bit different than positive pressure. I'm going to go over a few procedures for depressurization, but if you're set on the pressurization method with positive pressure, go ahead and ignore this section and continue on how you were trained. But we have some tech bulletins on the Partner Center and a great post on the tech forum from Tom Flanagan that goes over much more detail than what I'm going to cover today. This is a short synopsis on what's different from positive pressure testing. So first, you want to find the additional reference hose that's on the duct tester as shown in this picture here, outlined in yellow. This is a plastic tap that's coming off the hose, and it's wrapped around the fan. Next, you'll want to find the reference tap on your gauge B channel for reference. And then you connect the two taps using a hose. So there's 3 hoses in total that are connected to the gauge for negative pressure testing. And last but not least, you also need to be aware of what this foam piece is. Looks like somebody cut some Swiss cheese holes in this piece of foam, but that is important for the accuracy of negative duct testing. This is, again, just a brief synopsis. You can find more detail on the Partner Center, but if you are doing negative pressure testing, definitely check that out. The second QA mistakes we have found is on stem walls. We have a depiction of a stem wall here in the lower right corner. I found this on buildingscience.com. They've got some good resources that can share with your builders or learn a bit about a lot of different construction techniques. If you search slab happy, you'll find this slab insulation scheme here. So the question is, should this section be modeled as a foundation wall between conditioned space and ambient? So take a minute to take a look at the drawing on this stem wall and kind of internally ask yourself this question. Should it be modeled as a foundation wall? In this case, the stem wall does not extend past the height of the slab. It's not technically a foundation wall for the purposes of rim rate. Rim rate assumes a foundation wall will have conditioned air on one side and ambient air or grounds on the other side. This foundation has dirt on both sides, and it's not a part of the conditioned space. So modeling this as a foundation wall and rim rate would not be accurate since it's not a part of the conditioned space. The best way to model this insulation, however, is to put the height of the stem wall and the perimeter insulation depth shown here on the right. This can be found in the slab library screen. So if you want to account for the stem wall insulation, you can do so on the slab screen. Another common mistake is kitchen exhaust requirements for ENERGY STAR. So are kitchen exhausts required for all electric ovens and ranges? Another question for you to ask yourself. The answer is yes. They are required in all ENERGY STAR homes. And you might ask, why is that the case? Electric stoves don't have combustion byproducts, but they still do produce moisture, and there's still some pollution from the cooking process. So here we've got a pot of boiling water shown. You can see there's steam being produced through the boiling of this water, so there's a lot of moisture in the air that needs to be removed. It's really not much different from needing to remove the moisture from taking a shower and exhausting that from the house. This picture shows a skillet with some burnt bacon. You think that the odors and smoke from that bacon need to be removed. Bacon's a pretty common thing cooked in homes, and in a tight home, it really does need to be exhausted, otherwise it'll stick around. If we're looking at 0.3 air changes per hour, it's going to take, I haven't done the math in my head, but it's roughly going to take about 3 hours for that to exhaust out without any other source of ventilation. So it is important, even though there may not be gas combustion going on with an electric stove, there are still some pollutants that need to be exhausted, and that's why ENERGY STAR requires that for all homes. So moving on to some updates and reminders, we've got a few quick updates here. I hope you all have seen value in the Partner Center. I think it's a really great resource. But now you can geek out anytime, anywhere with a new responsive design for mobile devices. I just tried this out the other day on my phone and took a screenshot here. It's shown on the right. And it really makes using the Partner Center much easier and much easier to view on your phone or your tablet. So when you get a chance, check it out. The website, again, is energylogic.com/Partner Center. And then you can log in using your credentials and geek out on your mobile device. Another reminder here, the deadline for the combustion safety testing requirements from RESNET, that deadline from them is the end of this year. It's about 4 months away, so that'll be here before we know it. Only building analysts are exempt from the field training, so make sure you have a plan for the training and also taking the tests. Got a few combustion safety testing training dates. We're doing a few locations this year. We've got 4 in Berthoud. Each month from September to December we will have a training, so you can join us there if you need the training. We'll also be in Omaha, Nebraska in October, and Wilmington, North Carolina. We've had a lot of demand in both of those locations, so we're holding a local training there. And we're also looking to schedule one in Raleigh, North Carolina with a lot of demand there, and that date will be determined. So for more information, go to energylogicacademy.com. You'll find the training dates and information on how to sign up and what those requirements are, all at EnergyLogicAcademy.com. Another reminder, Raider Fest 2014, it's only 17 days away, so we're very excited. You guys have probably gotten a lot of reminders on that, but one last reminder here, in case you haven't already made plans to come, we'd love to have you. Instead of telling you all the reasons why you should come to Raider Fest, I've got a lot of good pictures. Maybe that will help entice you to sign up. It's a really great event, and we hope to see you there. There's a lot of great sessions, a lot of great people, and I feel it's one of the best ways to get your professional development. So if you need that, I think it's something to look into. It's also family friendly. We have a bunkhouse that's dedicated for families. We also have camping or bunking, a little bit of something for everybody. But it's a really intimate environment, a great way to collaborate with other experts in the industry and other rating companies and see how they do things. So hope to see you there. So our guest speaker today is Peter Troast. He's spoken at Raider Fest on multiple occasions. We're glad to have him here today. He's a marketing guru that is specialized in the home performance industry, and EnergyLogic has hired him to help us with some of our marketing efforts. And we're looking to see what would be the most effective way for us to help Raider partners in their business, and one of the most effective ways was to look at Google Business. So Peter here today is going to talk about understanding and wrangling my Google Business. So I'm going to hand over the presentation here to Peter, so bear with us just a second with this handoff. But welcome me and joining Peter.
Thanks a lot, Glenn and Hannah and Scott and everybody. Really appreciate you guys having me. How's my audio good and my screen showing okay?
Yep, audio's good. Yes.
See your screen.
Your screen's great.
Awesome. Okay. Well, good. Well, it's great to be with all of you, and I'm excited to talk about this particular topic. Glenn had mentioned that he'd spoken to a number of you, and we shared some emails and so forth. That this this continuing thing that Google has used to be called Google Places. Then they morphed it into Google Plus, and now it's called Google My Business. Is quite possibly one of the most confounding, infuriating, and confusing things going on that has a major impact on all of us. And so that's the topic today. We'll talk about Google My Business, and then also segue into talking about reviews, which is such a critical part of not just Google, but really a growing importance to all of us in kind of home performance businesses of all kinds. So what I wanted to cover, just a brief outline, is this announcement of Google My Business is actually just a matter of weeks old, and so I'll sort of bring you guys up to speed on what that was. We'll look at a quick tour of the system because it's really a back-end thing. Do a bit of a refresher on Google Plus Local and Google Plus Business and why that's so important to our businesses. We'll look a little bit at the process of claiming your page and then doing the fine-tuning of that page and making sure the data is all accurate. And then we'll sort of finish up by talking about reviews, why they're so important, how do you get them, and how do you deal with a couple of major problems that always come up, which is your reviews get filtered, in other words, not published, and and the possibility of negatives. So that's the agenda. And let me just say, I think a lot of folks know me, but just the basis from which I speak and sort of know about this stuff is that we work with about 327 now home performance businesses around the country in 49 states. We represent or work with folks in virtually every business model, from raters to contractors to auditors, folks that have an envelope orientation, a mechanical orientation. Pretty much if there's a business model in home performance, I think we work with somebody. As a result, we have this pretty amazing data set, about almost 2 million web visitors, thousands of leads. We estimate about $500 million in home performance work across the network of folks that we work with. And what that's done is given us a pretty incredible sandbox and the ability to test a lot of different things. So that's the little bit of just authority on which I can sort of talk about what I want to talk about. So what is this thing called Google My Business? Most importantly, what this is really just a brand name change for what Google used to call Google Places, and it kind of morphed into Google Plus. Google My Business technically is the administrative side only. In other words, the back end by which you manage your page, and you'll see I'm going to give you a tour of this, some really good, nice data. So while it's in some ways cosmetic, the cosmetic changes they made are really nice, and there's some pretty interesting data. There isn't any real change to the public-facing pages that you have out there, which are now kind of generally called the local Google Plus pages, and we'll look at that in just a second. Google is taking this very seriously, as I'll show you in a sec. Just their level of promotion of this is very serious. So that's a sign to all of us that it's very important. And there's some really nice mobile apps, both for Android and for iPhone, that give you the ability to kind of control things and publish and so forth on the back end. So it's actually pretty positive in the general sense. When they rolled this out, which was I think 4 or 5 weeks ago, they did so overnight in 236 countries and 65 languages. So you think that makes you think that's an indication that they might be serious? It is pretty rare that Google devotes that one additional link to their search bar to anything, and so they are currently saying it's good to be found. Get your business on Google for free. So yes, I think we think that they're pretty darn serious about what they're doing. They are giving it a huge marketing push. There's evidence across the world that there's major advertising, and so this is a huge effort to by Google to sort of get businesses like ours to engage in this platform. For many of us who have been wrestling with this, and I'm sure that many of you, have had this struggle, the terminology, has been pretty profane around what a big mess it is, and so we're all kind of hoping that this is a pretty significant improvement to this cluster that has been this whole ecosystem of Google Places and Google Plus and so forth. Many, some of the search gurus, local search gurus that we work with, this is what consultant that we work with, Mike Blumenthal, who's kind of the national leader. He called this train wreck at the junction some time ago. It's really been a mess. Those of us who kind of been paying attention to this, you remember that it used to be called Google Places. On the left side of this slide, they transformed that into Google Plus. It has always been a very critical place for how you rank organically for search for various services, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. It's always been the most critical place online for reviews, and one of the things to know about here is that Google would set these pages up for you based on the knowledge that your business existed without necessarily even telling you that it existed. So lots of people have a page that may be up there that's unverified and unclaimed that could be collecting reviews, and you have no way to really know about it. Then along comes Google Plus, which is Google's answer to kind of Facebook in a way, right? Their version of the social network. And they begin then to kind of have this separate thing, the typical like a Facebook page called the Google Plus business page. And then various things happened over time, and it was a big mess. Sometimes they would merge these two pages. Sometimes they would say not to merge them. Finally, I think the dust has sort of settled around this concept of Google My Business, and now these two separate things, basically a Google Places, Google Plus local page, and a Google Plus business page, are now, for the most part, merged. You may very well have remnants of old pages from old addresses and that kind of stuff, and one of the things we can talk about in the questions is the process of cleaning all that up. But generally speaking, you should now you can have one page called a local Google Plus page, and that should be kind of out there. So more on that in just a second. So that's the new name. The general consensus is the new name is your local Google Plus page. All right. Why does all of this matter so much? Why is this so important? For most of the searches that are relevant to us in home performance, Google produces a local search result. And so in this case, the search term here is energy audit Long Island. I just happened to do. And when you see this, what we call a blended listing, these three pins here, A, B, and C, that's what we think of as a local listing. And while this is also undergoing a fair amount of change recently with a major update that Google just made, for the most part, most of the search terms in our industry are generating this local result. There's a lot of churning going on with respect to the term energy audit, which I know is very relevant to, to all of you. But with respect to anything that is a specific service, like insulation here, very consistent that you'll see this kind of blended local research pack. This particular search term is furnace repair, so very clear to see this here. Air conditioning, very pretty consistent that you'll always kind of see these local results. And so the reason that this is so important is that, maybe I've got one more of these, I'll come back to that in just a second, is that for you to do well in ranking in these local, what we call packs, usually there's 7 of them, sometimes less, to rank well in a 7-pack, you've got to have a well-optimized Google Plus page and a well-optimized website. It's really the combination of those two things that lets you kind of perform well in this search. And you see how much real estate this is taking up on the first page of a search result. It's critical to getting good organic traffic to ranking highly there. The other thing that's so critical about Google Plus is that the data within it, right, is being transmitted across all of the web. So this is a search I did for one of our clients here in Maine. Many of you may know Richard Burbank, who's on the board of Efficiency First. These connected to his organic search result are the review averages from within his Google Plus page. This thing you see over on the right side of the page, which we call the knowledge panel, 100% of that data is coming from within that Google Plus page. So I'm going to say this again in a minute, but very important to say that the data inside of that Google Plus page is as important as the page itself, meaning because it is getting utilized throughout the Google network in so many other places. And then we're going to talk more towards the end about reviews, but these reviews are increasingly important. And one of the things I'll point out and just mention again here is that you'll notice in Richard's particular search result, you see that he has got this 4.9 average showing based on 5 Google reviews. And so 5 is the threshold that you need to get to in order for the star average to show up. So as soon as you hit 5, you'll see the stars. From 0 to 4, you'll just see a reference that says how many reviews you have, but you won't get the stars. And so obviously, if your average is really good, you really want to get to that 5 average, quickly, so that those stars are showing up. So hopefully that all kind of, that all kind of makes sense. The reviews are very important. I'm going to come back and talk about this. So let me just spin out here to live on the web, and I just want to show you, DeWitt Kimball, who's one of our clients and a rater here in the state of Maine, gave me permission to show his page. And when you log in, and I'll show you in a sec kind of how you're going to do this, and you're logged into your actual page, you get this screen. It's got a panel here where you can actually post things. So one of the things, again, one of the changes from the old Google Plus to the new Google, the old Google Places to the new Google Plus, is that it's now more social. There's the ability to add text and photos and links and videos and so forth. And this is a very good place to put your content. There's some data, insights here about your business for the last 30 days. And so, in this case, he's got supposedly 620 views, a 60% increase in those views. and 0 clicks and followers. And if you want to click through, I'm not going to do it just in the interest of time for this, but you can click through to this Insights page, and you can see, some fairly interesting information. Perhaps the coolest thing of all is this section about reviews, because what this is doing is aggregating the data from reviews about your business from all across the web, not just in Google, but in various other places. It's not 100% accurate, as I'll describe in just a second, but it is a really terrific and, frankly, the best available thing out there for managing your reviews. So in this case, DeWitt has 2 and on Google, and then 12 from around the web. And one of the things that happened to him in this transition, and one of the things I want to flag for all of you, is that he lost some of his Google reviews. And so we're in the process of trying to get some of those back for him. But one thing to just be mindful of when you go and take a look is just see if there's no way to know if you lost them unless you knew they existed before, but that's there. And so what you'll see on this first page is here are all the reviews from Google, and you'll notice here, it gives you the review, who wrote it. In this case, I happen to write one for him. There's a nice little button here to view and reply. So right within this administrative interface, you can review and reply to those things. And then what's equally cool is that there's then this aggregation of all the reviews you may have from various other places around the web. And like I said, it's not 100% complete, but it's pretty solid. Merchant Circle, Better Business Bureau, Insider Pages, then various other ones kind of from around the webs. And then it rolls it all up for you in a pretty decent analytics package, which says, you've got 2 on Google. Here's the kind of the balance of reviews from various other locations, and then if he were over 5, what you would see here is kind of the rating stats on on how many 5 stars and 4 stars and 3 stars and so forth. So again, really nice little interface for doing that. Those are the main things I just wanted to show about that. There's some other data in here. If you've got an active, I'll show you just one other company. This is National Heating and Air. So this is what it looks like when you actually have, multiple reviews. It'll show you your average, which is really pretty slick. And then if you have a YouTube channel connected to it, which these guys do. Sorry, let's see, where's, you go back one more screen. Shows you action on your various posts, views, of how many, how much data you've got, and then here's where the, if you connect Google Analytics, you can get that, and there's a kind of a nice way to connect YouTube. So bottom line is a pretty nice little set of data, information that's definitely worth kind of going and getting set up. So that's the quick tour. I just want to reemphasize this point that the data is more important than the page. So inside of that, and the way you'll access it is just going to this URL, google.com/business. And what you want to make sure you do is sign in here with the email address that you may have used associated with setting up your page. So you're going to be in one of 2 states. You're either going to have it, you'll know you've got it verified, you have that page claimed. If you haven't claimed your page or you don't have a page, Google will put you through a verification process. They'll send you a postcard with a code, and you'll have to do that. And you definitely want to make that, get that process underway. So a lot of times people don't remember exactly which email address they use, so if you can do the best you can. If you sign in with that, though, and it is the correct address, your page will then show up. You'll see it, you'll see it on the next screen. Once you get inside, a couple things, and I'm just pointing out a couple of the super important things here. Making sure that your address data is absolutely correct and consistent with everything else that exists across the web is a very important factor in kind of local search. So not having inconsistent addresses for your company, and this happens to so many of us who might have moved and so forth. So first and foremost, make sure that you say, you confirm the accuracy and be kind of incredibly detailed about this. It's the slightest little differences sometimes indicate to Google that this might not be the same company. You know, a suite number versus a office number or something like that. The other thing that's really important for most of us, and I'm assuming that most folks on this call are doing business in a service area, it's very important to check this box that says I deliver goods and services to my customers at their location. Okay, very very important. And then in addition to that, you can then indicate to Google either the specific zip codes, multiple zip codes that you do business in, or a radius. And this is super important because this is that data, the longitudes and latitudes inside that radius, if you use that particular option, are sent, are known to Google as the service area in which you're doing business. So your ability to kind of rank, if you're doing business in multiple communities or cities or towns, very important to kind of make that happen first. So real address consistency, and then making sure you do that. I deliver services to customers at their location is super important. The next thing you're going to deal with is, and it's a huge frustration, and just makes me want to tear what little hair I have left out, is to develop the categories for your business. And it used to be that Google let us freelance. We could put in Energy Rater, Energy Auditor in there. Now that's not the case anymore. You are stuck with the categories that Google gives us. And so the specific list, and maybe this would be something that I could send to Hannah afterwards, and we could send out to everybody afterwards, that these are the things that are the most relevant to us in the kind of big picture of home performance. But for anyone who is on the consulting only side, auditing only side, it's a real problem. You probably don't want to call yourself a contractor, which many of these categories are, air conditioning and insulation and HVAC and so forth. And yet, the only real kind of consultant model categories that are even closely relevant to us are consultant generally, which is horrible, and then environmental consultants. So it's a real issue, and I think one that I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to, but especially for us as as raters and consulting model businesses, it's a big challenge. If you are doing in the installation work, obviously some of these are sort of obvious: insulation contractor, an HVAC contractor, heating contractor, et cetera. So that's a challenge and something we can have some more discussion about. The other thing to make sure you do here is maximize the description. You've got an unlimited amount of copy here, and you can put links in. Don't go crazy over link, but this is a great way to kind of connect your Google Plus system to your website by linking through. And this is one of the ways to address that energy audit thing, if you've got, or energy rating thing. If you've got pages on your site, which you should, about those specific services, then you can use those links to kind of identify those services. So those are the three things: address consistency, getting your categories as right as you can given the challenges of it, and then making sure your description's good. Those are the main things I want you to do kind of first off. One of the good pieces of good news, as Google has put all this new effort into Google My Business, is they actually have real support. And so up here at the top of the page, in the little sort of help thing, is just a help button, and that help will lead you to a number of different pages where you can get online help with your accounts and so forth. And the recent response time that we've had from making claims here is really, really quite good. I mean, 24-hour resolution and so forth. The thing you're probably most often going to deal with as a kind of the challenge here is this manage your pages. So you can add and remove page managers to help do things. Sometimes there's ownership issues with a page. If you ever in the past used a marketing service like Reach Local or Yodel or one of these things, sometimes they own your page, and so you have to kind of get it back from them. Sometimes you may want to have multiple pages because of old addresses and you want to delete it. So this is generally the place to do it, but as I said, they're real people, and the response times and kind of effectiveness have been really, really quite good. So that's the quick intro to Google, the sort of general sort of situation with respect to Google My Business. What I want to move to now is the importance of reviews within this ecosystem, but it's not just, reviews have become so critical to all of us. I want to make sure that we talk not just about Google+, but also about other places where reviews are important. So I think it's obvious to most folks, but just I think it's worth talking about that. As I'm going to show you, this new world order of kind of third-party reviews is in my view, I called this one of the major marketing trends for home performance for 2014, and there is no doubt in my mind, it's here we are, sort of more than halfway through the year, that this has certainly been true. It is very, very important. First and foremost, because there's nothing better than a third-party endorsement, right? I mean, in most of our business, that kind of word of mouth has always been, always will be our finest form of marketing, and now word of mouth is kind of on steroids because of these things. In my view, if you sort of adopt a customer-centric culture in your company in which you are really thinking about and thriving and driving the company culture around feedback from your customers, I think that's a very positive thing just in a general sense for your company. There is proof that that reviews and quality high reviews drive better conversion, right? Whether it's a sign-up or a phone call, as well as in more e-commerce related businesses, better margins. One of the things I'm going to show you is that the new customer mindset, particularly amongst homeowners, is they're going to check reviews before they even look at you. And so there's a fair amount of evidence that that's actually happening. Depending on where you are in the country, we'll talk some more about this piece, there is the traffic to your website is now, there's significant traffic drivers from the more powerful of these review sites like Yelp, depending on where you are. I know there might be a couple folks on from California. Yelp is very, very big there. So this is real, real traffic. And there's another piece here, which is that having diversity of reviews around the web is a very important thing. Perhaps most important of all, and this is the most obvious, is bad reviews can kill you. And if you haven't been taking care of these, and there might be just kind of mistaken reviews. I've seen plenty of this out there, just old stuff that's not even related to the delivery of service. It can really hurt. I do think, however, that regardless of how well how great our companies are, how great our quality management systems are, at some point, we're going to have a bad day, customer's going to have a bad day, and there's going to be a negative review. I think we just need to plan for that as an inevitability, and so in doing so, I think the way to think about this is dilution of that maybe one, maybe two bad reviews that are going to happen naturally is really the solution to kind of making that work. A little bit of data on this, and this is a study, a consumer study. It's statistically valid across U.S. consumers about about do you read online customer reviews to determine whether a local business is a good business. And the numbers, as this has grown over time, if you take yes regularly and yes occasionally, we're talking about 88%. Only 12% say no, they're not doing this. So and if you just look at the curve of these growth in terms of the number of people. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to skip over that one yet. From 22 to 39% regularly look at things over the over the course of the last 4 years. Very, very significant trend. How do online customer reviews influence your decision to use a local business? This was, positive reviews make me more likely to use a local business. And again, this 2013 data, which was the most recent on this particular question, it's north of 60%. So really, really, really important. One of the things that's becoming increasingly clear is that there is a threshold in your star averages, which can be the sort of the killer, and it looks like it's around sort of 3.5 stars. If you have an average that is anything less than 3.5 stars, most people, the majority of people, will consider that to be too low to want to do business with you, and so. that's something to be very kind of mindful of. And then, I think in general, while, obviously you wouldn't expect a study like this to include reference to specific energy auditing or energy rating businesses, it's worth noting that, that in the types of businesses where reputation matters the most, the general category we live in around tradesmen or around builder, roofer, that's kind of, I think, where most homeowners would categorize us, sort of, are the ones in which the demand is absolutely the highest for reputation. So, not surprisingly, I mean, we tend to get grouped in with contractors. This is that trend line on, the number of people who sit down and do a search for reviews. And I happen to do this one. I just did contractor reviews, and this is from 2007 until today. And there's obviously some seasonality to this in terms of the spiking and so forth. But what you see is a very, very clear trend line going up in terms of the number of people who literally are looking for reviews in Google search before they're actually even looking for you. So really important. The other thing, as I pointed out before and just want to reemphasize again, is the review data is increasingly accessible. Google is including it in as many search results, as possible. This is even, just a standalone, for Energy Audit Arlington, Virginia, and, with Home Energy Medics, listing here, their reviews are directly connected, and I think when you look at that, you note it makes for a very powerful listing, right? First, they're number one, which is awesome, and secondly, they've got 7 reviews at an average of 4.8, and that orange star thing really, really helps stand out. That makes it a, as I pointed out, and I just want to mention again, 5 is the threshold. So if you look down this particular list, you see, Arrow Insulation's got 9, so they've crossed that 5, and their 4.7 average is showing up. HHL Insulation in this case has 2, and so the only thing that shows up there is 2 Google reviews. And then down below here you see Ballard, which has none, and the link there is just going to be Google Plus page. So your goal is to try to slowly but surely get across that 5 threshold. I would just sort of pose the question, when you see 2 results that are side by side like this, one that says 4 Google reviews and one that says 8 with an average of 4.3, where does your eye go? Who is the one that's most likely to get that click? So priorities. It's a little bit hard. I know there's folks who are representing a fair number of different geographies on this call. It's a little hard to say universally what your review priorities should be because they are different in different parts of the country. And so what I'm recommending you do to try to define your own priorities is just do some general searching in your geography. In this particular case, I did Energy Audit Oakland, California, and what comes up second, in this case, is Yelp. And as I mentioned, Yelp is making a big surge as a high-ranking and extremely important location for reviews for service businesses all around the country. It's not very even in terms of its sort of importance in a place like California and the Bay Area in particular, where it's obviously kind of a hotbed of technology. That Yelp tends to be very, very, very strong. So that's, as far as I can tell, the sort of the correlation that I'm seeing is if you are in a place that has technological sophistication, Yelp can be very important. But the way you'll kind of make this call is do some searches for services such as Energy Audit and see what comes up. In Oakland, in this particular case, Yelp comes up high. In Concord, California, Yelp is number 1. But then you kind of go down the page and you see the Better Business Bureau is ranking pretty highly. The rest of these listings are companies, which you hopefully are succeeding in doing. When you go to, like, in this case, insulation contractor Napa, in this case, the yellow pages are still hanging on, and Home Advisor, the former Service Magic, comes in 3rd, and then down below you see Angie's List. So again, these are constantly changing, and there's no kind of sort of right or wrong here, but this is a good way to kind of get an indication. One thing to notice here, and this is really interesting. This is air conditioning repair in Sacramento, California. These two listings here, one of these is a directory, meaning air conditioning repair Sacramento. You're going to get a list of a whole bunch of companies. This second one is actually a particular company, which happens to be named air conditioning repair, which is which is convenient. So you could end up, your company could actually rank within Yelp specifically if you're on your game and do that well. One more, just I think home performance contractor, San Francisco, and once again you see kind of Yelp doing very well, but again this is a specific company reference, so pretty powerful. If this happens to be an Energy Circle customer, Kevel Home, really good guys in San Francisco, that they're #1 organic, and then they are whatever this is #4 for their Yelp review. So being there twice. Really powerful, and then seeing that they've got a 5 rating on 12 reviews in Yelp, pretty powerful statement. So after you do that sort of ground truthing, if you will, of your own location and what you think, I think at the end of the day, the likelihood of your review priorities is probably going to end up being something like this, right? I happen to just say this one for California, but Google first, and the reason for Google being so important is everything I've said so far, the clout of Google, the importance of that data within within the Google ecosystem, and then because the reviews are a known ranking factor in kind of how well you kind of rank. So that's where to go first. I think Yelp second, and whether Yelp is showing up in your particular community, what's pretty clear is that they are making a huge push towards service area businesses in general, and I think they're kind of headed our way, and it's just happening very, very, very quickly. Following that, I think you need to make your own judgment about whether Angie's List is relevant in your part of the world or not. One of the things about Angie's List is that their marketing effort and their membership is not uniform across the country. So, you probably have a sense in your local community if there's if Angie's List matters or not. But they're pushing hard. You see their advertisements on TV all the time, and clearly for contracting types of businesses, they are relevant. I am noticing Thumbtack is one of these kind of newfangled things that's coming out, and I'm just noticing it a lot more. So I put that on this list as well because again, it's a little skewed towards areas where that are more technologically sophisticated, but it's but it's coming on strong, and I'm just seeing it more and more. And then finally, I say City Search, and the reason for City Search is that City Search is a feeder for about 15 other sites. So you get a review on City Search, and it'll it'll play and locate on various other things. I want to just say here that it tends to be kind of different in kind than a lot of what we just talked about, but don't forget Facebook. And as most of you know, there is a review system inside of Facebook. It is a bit of the Wild West. Somebody can click the thing and leave a star and no comment. There's no clear sort of procedure for how you deal with any of these reviews and so forth. So, but the prominence of the stars on your Facebook page is so high that it's definitely something you don't want to kind of overlook. One thing to say, and I'm going back to the Google My Business admin screen that rolls up your reviews. The one disappointing thing is it doesn't roll up Angie's List or Home Advisor or Thumbtack or Facebook. So 4 that are pretty relevant in our business are not included in that. So just be aware of that fact. Now, so if you sort of buy what I'm saying in terms of the importance of kind of getting reviews, one of the things that so many people have confronted is that you put some effort into it, you get, customer builder that you're working with to kind of write a review and it's positive and it doesn't show up. It gets filtered. And so I want to just talk a little bit. There's nothing more frustrating than that, putting an effort in. But it's pretty straightforward as to why that happens. At the end of the day, I think Google's sort of policy on this is fairly obvious, right? Sometimes our algorithms may flag and remove legitimate reviews in order to combat abuse. But their goal here is reviews appearing on Google that are authentic, relevant, and useful. So what they want is a organic approach, meaning that I think Google's expectation is you deliver good service, people sort of have a remarkable experience with you as a result of that experience, and then they go and they take an opportunity to kind of to give you a high five. And so what you don't want to do is sort of give any indication that you are trying to manage or game the system. So the things that are the most important from the standpoint of not getting filtered is first and foremost pace. So you listen to me today and you rush off next week and suddenly you go from 1 review to 5 next week when you've had 1 over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. That's going to signal a significant change in velocity, is what Google calls it, of pace of reviews, and the chances, therefore, are pretty high that you could get, this is the most important factor in terms of folks getting filtered. So slow, steady pace is first and foremost the #1 factor in Google. The second is no duplicates, and this is again super frustrating, right? So what this is saying is that a review on Google can't exist anywhere else on the web. You can't have a review that is on Google and copy that review and put it on your website. Or you can't have a review on your website and ask that customer to copy that particular review and put it on Google, because they index everything, they see everything and know everything, and if they see a duplicate review, then we've got issues. You can never incentivize reviews, and so and never pay for them. If there's certainly a lot of sleazy operations out there. They probably called you up, and you've probably gotten one of these. It's we can get you good reviews. Just don't ever do that. But you really shouldn't, Google's official rules say don't incentivize. So, if you you shouldn't, for example, advertise on your website, a free Amazon gift card or something like that. Don't review yourself, right? So that's not okay. But one of the things that is a little known fact is that business pages in Google Plus can review other business pages. So that's, a lot of people think that it's 100% individuals, and that's not always the case. And then never put a URL, a web address. Again, that's just another, it's another signal to the, algorithm that somebody's trying to game the system. So those are the main things with respect to Google reviews. Yelp is a little bit different, but perhaps even more more sensitive in terms of their kind of filtering. So because they are, to an even greater degree in some ways than Google, trying to just assure that there is super high quality stuff here. The biggest factor in Yelp reviews getting filtered, and this is basically what happens, is they put them on a second page with a link that you can barely find, and they don't count them in your averages, is if the person doing that review is doing their very first review. So again, as you're thinking, and we'll talk some more a little bit about process in just 1 second, you don't want to go out and have brand new people show up on Yelp and give you a review. The chances of that sticking is very low. So if it's from someone who has no profile, right, on their Yelp page, again, sort of a newbie to Yelp, bad sign. The other thing that Yelp looks for is super strongly positive or super strongly negative, right? If it's if it's just kind of over the top. If it's short and lacking in details. And then the other thing they look for is location. right? So if, and whether it's never been quite clear whether they recognize that we're a service area business, and the likelihood of somebody, in Maine buying an energy audit from somebody in Colorado is unlikely, but that kind of factor is there. So those are the main things with Yelp. But as I said, the major one is the fact, newbies to Yelp typically don't get their reviews filtered. All right, what do you do when you get a negative? Because, like I said before, I think you will. This is what Google says, right? In terms of, and we don't have to go through this in too much detail, but for the most part, Google is very lenient about what is acceptable. I mean, the things that they will remove are advertising, spam, phone numbers and URLs, off-topic reviews, profanity, conflicts of interest, illegal content, copyright content, sexually explicit material, impersonation, and personal and confidential information, and hate speech, right? So I looked at somebody who may be listening to this call the other day who had just a 1-star, and from a Google user, unidentified, and no statement whatsoever, and that particular review has been there. Now, whether that is filterable as kind of, I would try to call that off topic, is so forth. But generally speaking, it's not easy to get rid of reviews. So I want to make a clear sort of point here that if you have a negative review, even if it's off topic, I know very often it's it's not related to a service. It's I called these people and I didn't get a call back in 24 hours, 1 star. Or I'll show you another one in just a second. That is completely unrelated to the business at hand. Those tend not to violate these policies, and so that's why I'm so strong on this point that you're going to get a bad one. It's very hard to get it taken down, and so therefore your best solution is a dilution by a bunch of positives. Now, if you want to try to challenge it, this is the page you'll get on. There's a little flag next to that review, and you click that flag, and it's going to ask you this question: what is the type of evaluation? And 4 things show up: hateful, violent, or inappropriate content, advertising or spam, off topic, or contains conflict of interest. Now, if you think a competitor is gaming you or something like that, that's clearly in the conflict of interest bucket. Most of the time, I think off topic is our best shot. And if you want to do something, so that's what I would recommend. But again, it's not there's no guarantees, and about 9 times out of 10 we tend not to get anything taken down. So if you can't get it taken down, then what do? So my first piece, is sometimes you can deal with the customer, right? The only person who really has editing control over that review is the person who made it, right? And all the reviews I've ever written, I have the ability to go back and change those. So if you can, I would say first and foremost, fix the problem directly with that customer, satisfy them after the fact for whatever happened, and then ask them if they would correct their review. I mean, it's you may not get there, but it's worth doing. Secondly, respond, and I would say there is response mechanism in both Google as well as in Yelp, and I would almost always respond to a negative review. It's certainly better to hear some comment from you as to what happened in that particular case. But don't think of the response mechanism as just for negatives, right? It's I don't think you want to go crazy and necessarily respond to every positive one, but a response here and there that said, "We're glad you had a great experience, and so did we." Whatever that is, I think can be really really positive. Dilution with positives, as I've said repeatedly, that's your key. And if you can, appeal it like I just showed you, but don't expect that that's ever going to really work. This is an example of one, where they've got a 4.4 average on 6 reviews. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 of these are 5-star, and there's one here that's a 2-star. and it's off topic. I very much don't appreciate spamming Craigslist with bogus job ads, right? So just this is a really, I think, a very straightforward, honest, authentic response. Hey, Trish, we realized it 6 months later. We just wanted to clear this up. We don't spam Craigslist, et cetera. So again, I think that's just really good. And you look at this, right? You look at the, to my point about dilution, you see 4 really positive, things here. My experience was excellent. I can't say enough about the team. My experience was exceptional, et cetera. And then you see this one thing that's kind of off topic. I think you kind of recognize that someone looking at that would discount that, that one review and just say, okay, well, it was weird, but somebody dealt with it. So I want to just wrap up now with just talking a little bit about process because, like I said, what's not okay is just, rush out and kind of try to have this little burst of stuff. So I think the best process is really a kind of company-wide business system that says you commit to a feedback-centric culture. Figure out what your process is. One of the key things I think to think about, and this is very business model dependent, is when is the right time to ask. In the world of e-commerce, many of you buy anything on Amazon, it's a very systematic and very scientifically determined. 21 days later, you get an invitation to write a review because that's their expectation of how long it took you to read a book or something like that. So think about, when the sort of high point of the experience with you may have happened. In some cases, if you just did an audit, it's probably right after the audit, right? People have kind of experienced that and so forth. Think about how to ask, and then think about how often to repeat. It is okay to repeat the request to do that. It's very important, I think, to kind of repeat that process systematically, just have it consistent, and then leverage the reviews, right? That once you go through this sort of exhausting process to get the darn thing, make sure you take advantage of it, right? Pointing out that you've got good reviews, but just with the caution that you can't have that duplicate thing with respect to Google. I think the way to make it work is you've got to ask, think about when that perceived value is the highest, and in my view, you've got one shot at the apple. So don't expect that even your most enthusiastic customer is going to do you a review on Google and then a different one on Yelp and so forth. I think you got one shot, and to ask them to do it in one place. If you let them choose their review site, I think you avoid that Yelp problem, right? Someone who is not really on Yelp is probably not going to go to Yelp and do it. If they have a Gmail address, then that's a good one to ask about Google+, because that's at least an indicator, if they have a Gmail email address, that they are in the Google ecosystem and have a lesser burden in terms of signing up. Clearly, from a demographic standpoint, people who are younger are more likely to be reviewers. It's just more kind of part of the culture and shtick. And be mindful of how you ask the question. I think stating it in a way that that sort of brings some purpose to what you're asking for. Not just would you write us a great review, but would you help us? If you had a good experience. And know of other folks that might be interested in the same experience that you had, would you be willing to kind of help us get the word out? And like I said, slow and steady wins the race. It's this anything kind of episodic or spiky tends to get filtered. So I think the way to do this is figure out a process to solicit everybody that you work with in some fashion, right? Not necessarily to write a review, but get feedback from everybody you work with. And from that feedback, identify your happiest customers, right? So, we call this evangelists or, various other terms in kind of marketing, but, the people who are your true kind of promoters. Once you've done that, then of course you want to say, well, are there some ways that you can figure out if an evangelist is the kind of person that writes online reviews? And as I said, younger and more computer savvy are the ones that tend to do so, and the Gmail address is good. And then repeat the ask. It really is okay to go back and do that. So I think the best approach here is send a survey first. You can just do an online survey. You can embed it on your website using something like SurveyMonkey and so forth, and that gets you kind of that initial feedback. And the tool that we recommend using for the sort of drawing that line between your kind of the true promoters and just sort of regular folks is what's called the Net Promoter Score. I'm sure many of you may have heard of this. It's a fairly well-known, I'd say extremely well-known, single question that many companies, big companies, are using to try to, as a single, simple way to identify customer satisfaction. And I know you've all had this survey done to you at some point in the past. How likely are you to recommend XYZ energy rating company to a colleague or a friend? And when you get a 9 or a 10, you're declared to be a promoter. A 7 or 8 are neutral or passive, and 6 or below are detractors. And you can, if you want to follow through on the whole metric around this, which I think is a pretty cool metric, your net promoter score is the percentage of your promoters minus the percentage of your detractors, and it's a really nice, it's a really nice metric. But what's powerful from the standpoint of the rating review side is, your 9s and 10s are the people that are clearly really happy with what you did, and so that's what I suggest is you ask that question, which is you can do within SurveyMonkey, for example. When people give you a 9 or 10, then those are the ones you turn to for support. So final slide, and then we'd be happy to take some questions and discussion and so forth. Is I would say the next immediate next steps here. Go to Google My Business. And make sure that your pages are in control, that you don't have any duplicates out there, that if you need to go through the verification process, you can do so. Make sure, as I said, that your data, in terms of name, address, and phone number are all consistent. Get some focus on reviews and just try to get on a steady path in Google in particular to get over that 5 threshold. But again, slow and steady is what kind of wins the race. Once that stuff is done, giving your Google Plus page a little bit of love. I didn't really focus too much on this, but just getting some photographs up there, putting a video up every once in a while. If you are doing any regular writing on your website, which I would strongly recommend in terms of either blogging or just fresh content on your site, linking that content from your Google Plus page back to your site is a proven best practice. Google really has the value of that link kind of turned up pretty high. And then finally, I would just say, watch for coming attractions. There's just so much change going on. Some of those local listings I know I showed you around Energy Audit has been under kind of major churn over the course of the last couple of weeks. Google's clearly putting a lot of investment in this. There's a lot of talk about new features and so forth. And the one thing that we definitely can guarantee is that it will all continue to change as time goes on. So, Glenn, Hannah, I'll stop there and would love to have discussion or questions or anything that folks want to chime in with.
Great. Thank you, Peter. That was very informative, and I think there's a lot of great stuff there. We did record this webinar, so we will put it up on the Partner Center, and you'll be able to access this presentation there. And feel free, once we send an email out to notify you that it is up there, feel free to forward that on to some of your colleagues who you think could use this, or to the appropriate people if that's not yourself. I think that that's the value of having these webinars and recording, is that you can utilize them for future reference. But yeah, thank you again, Peter. I appreciate that. We'll go ahead and open up to questions. I think if you want to raise your hand and you prefer to ask the question directly over the phone, we will unmute you when you raise your hand there using that feature. Or if you prefer, go ahead and type your question in the chat box, and we will address it with everybody there. So go ahead and open that up. Looks like we did a really good job, Peter. Don't have any activity.
Or we overwhelmed everybody.
Looks like we do have one typed in here. Peter, this might be one for you. Somehow I have 2 Google Plus pages. Is there a good method for merging?
Yeah, so a great question, and so this is very often the case, right? If you've moved or anything recently. So I guess there's 2 options when you have 2. One is merger is certainly an option, and then just deleting the old page. And obviously the determination on that is whether there's valuable stuff on the wrong one, right? So presumably one of them is correct and one of them's not. This happened exactly to me, and frankly with Energy Circle we moved addresses. There was a lingering page from an old address, and it had a 5-star review on it. So I was like, well, I don't want to turn that off because I want that review. So in that case, I used that service that I described in terms of the help button. Described it, just in email to the Google person, and literally in 24 hours, she made the change. So she said she shut down the old page, moved the review over, and got it done. So I would think the determination on whether you just, delete it or whether there's some valuable stuff there and you want to merge it, make that call yourself, but you'll have to have Google do it for you. Like I said, they're remarkably responsive these days.
Yeah, that's good to hear, definitely. I've got kind of just a general comment as well here. This is Glenn. And one thing, I think this is immediately easy to see the value if you're an auditor or a contractor, because a lot of homeowners will use Google Plus and Yelp to search for those services. I think new home raters, obviously, they may not have builders who have it in their process to review or look at reviews before they hire a rater, but you just never know. I think it's a public forum, and I think when a builder may be shopping, that's something to be on the lookout for. And I think it's good to at least take control of your site. Anything you would add there, Peter, as far as that's concerned?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, Glenn, because this is for most folks in in the rating business, there's inevitably some balancing act between business-to-business marketing aimed at builders versus business-to-consumer business that's directed at homeowners and consumers and so forth. And so I think you're right. I mean, clearly, I think the data all shows that consumers increasingly expect it. The issue, of course, is that Google doesn't make a distinction, right, in how it displays stuff. So that builder that's just searching for your name, in search and having that come up, and given that ubiquitousness of the review data, I think it's sort of inevitable that they're going to see something, right? And so, my point of view is I think it's probably more important to homeowners than it is to, in the kind of business-to-business context, but I don't think it's irrelevant. And like I said, remember that businesses can review businesses. So if you have a Google Plus page, or you have a colleague, let's say you've got a regular contractor that you work with frequently, that contractor, if they have a Google Plus page, can review you, and say, we really rely on the recommendations of, this, auditor, this rater, to et cetera. So, I guess I just think it is such a review-laden world that, even builders who are going to primarily hire you on word of mouth and a relationship and so forth, but there's a stop on the web somewhere between them hearing about your service and them deciding to make to hire you. And I think that in that sense that these review areas are are probably just as important in that circumstance.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think I'll add one last thing to that topic. EnergyLogic occasionally will get a call looking from someone in your area who finds EnergyLogic through either word of mouth or through searching for raters or auditors, and our page pops up. And we will send them to our list of rater partners. What we would like to do is send them to a map of rater partners that we work with. And Google Maps is a great tool for that, and it integrates very well with the local Google Plus pages. And that's one effort, I think, that we are waiting to just kind of have partners get more steam rolling with the Google world, and then we'll start to utilize that a bit more. So I think at a very minimum, it's useful there, and as Peter pointed out, it's a review-driven world, and you just never know at what point that's gonna pop up and be useful to you. I don't see anybody raising hands, and I don't see any questions in the chat box. Got about 10 more minutes here. I think we'll sit tight for a couple more minutes in case some questions pop up. But I do appreciate everybody taking the time today. Thank you, Peter, for joining us today. We do appreciate that.
Well, it's great to be here, and I put my contact stuff up here, folks, for you, because honestly, if you enter into this, particularly around the claiming of your page and so forth, if you run into any trouble with that, I'm seriously offered to help, and I'm not charging for that. It's just we've done it so many times, we kind of know where the roadblocks are and the tripwires, and we've got a good relationship not just with real people at Google, but also with the whole search community, and there's a lot of people in the local search community that are trying to make this a lot better, and so I really love hearing the real world stories of what's happening, and would encourage you to share those and email me if I can be of any use.
I think we'll stick around for just a couple more minutes, just because we have time.
Okay,
but anybody who needs to go, feel free to go on about your day. But we'll go ahead and stick around in case there's someone that's working on a draft of a question here. But feel free to go on about your day. like we haven't had any activity in the last few minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and let Peter go, and we'll go ahead and call it a day. Thank you, everybody, again. Appreciate your time, and we'll be on the lookout for another webinar of this sort.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Bye.